Every once in a while, a movie surprises you. Not just with spectacle or clever twists, but with heart. Project Hail Mary did that for me. Adapted from Andy Weir's highly acclaimed novel, Project Hail Mary is one of the most enjoyable movies I've seen in a long time. Funny, imaginative, and genuinely moving. What lingered with me most after the credits rolled wasn't the wow factor of the production. Of course, there is a lot of wow factor there because $248 million was poured into the production of the movie. What was actually stunning about the movie was the friendship at the heart of it. That might sound strange for a movie about saving the world from an extinction-level threat, but at its core, the story is about two unlikely friends learning to trust each other and sacrifice for one another. And there's something desperately in that our culture needs to recover. In his classic book, The Four Loves, C.S. Lewis writes about the different kinds of love that shape human life. Among them is what he calls philia, the Greek word for the love of friendship. Lewis famously noted that friendship has often been the most overlooked form of love in the modern world. We celebrate romance, we cherish family, but friendship? We tend to treat it as optional. Yet Scripture and Christian theology suggest otherwise. Friendship is one of God's gifts for shaping our character. Proverbs tells us that iron sharpens iron. Jesus calls his disciples friends. Throughout the Bible, God uses friendship as a means of grace. Project Hail Mary beautifully illustrates this. The relationship between Ryland Grace, who's Ryan Gosling, and Rocky, the extraterrestrial being, begins with uncertainty, fear, and misunderstanding. They come from completely different worlds. Communication is difficult, trust has to be earned, but slowly, patiently, friendship forms. And through that friendship, both of them change. C.S. Lewis says, friendship is the instrument by which God reveals to each of us the beauties of others. One of the most compelling aspects of the movie is how friendship transforms Grace. When we first meet him, he isn't the stereotypical hero. He's not naturally courageous. He's not particularly self-sacrificial. In fact, part of his backstory reveals that when confronted with a moment requiring bravery, he failed. That's what makes his eventual heroism so powerful. Grace becomes courageous, not because he suddenly discovers some hidden reservoir of bravery in him, but because friendship draws it out of him. Anyone who has walked closely with another person knows this dynamic. Real friendship exposes our weaknesses. It challenges our selfishness. It forces us to grow. In a sense, friendship is sanctifying. God uses it to shape us into people capable of better and greater love. Grace's growing loyalty to Rocky becomes the catalyst for his transformation. The more he cares about his friend, the more willingly he is to risk and sacrifice himself. Love leads to sacrifice, and that is a deeply Christian idea. As Jesus said, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Another theme that the film captures so well is the nature of heroism. We often imagine heroes as people who are naturally brave, individuals who possess extraordinary courage from the start. But Project Hail Mary presents a different vision. Grace becomes heroic not through one dramatic moment, but through a series of small decisions. He keeps doing the next best thing. He solves the next problem. He takes the next step of responsibility. As Teddy Roosevelt once said, in any moment of decision, the best thing that you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing that you can do is nothing. This is such an important corrective to how we think about leadership and courage. In our culture, we often glorify heroic leadership that seems disconnected from the slow, faithful work that actually produces it. But most real heroism is forged in ordinary faithfulness. In many ways, that mirrors the Christian life. Faithfulness to God usually doesn't look like grand gestures. It looks like obedience today, loving the person in front of you, taking the next faithful step even when you're afraid. Jesus said, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Project Hail Mary isn't just thoughtful. It's also a lot of fun. Ryan Gosling delivers a terrific performance, bringing both humor and vulnerability to the role. The film has several genuine laugh-out-loud moments, which makes the emotional beats land even harder. The balance between comedy, tension, and the heart is remarkably well done. Science fiction can sometimes become cold or overly technical, but Project Hail Mary remains deeply human throughout. One of the reasons stories resonate so deeply is that they echo truths about the world God made. This movie reminds us that friendship matters. It reminds us that courage can grow. It reminds us that love pushes us beyond what we thought we were capable of. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that heroes are often made through not extraordinary beginnings, but through ordinary faithfulness. In a world that often feels lonely and cynical, stories about sacrificial friendships are more than entertaining, they're hopeful. And they point us ultimately to the great friend who came for us, Jesus.